Hey, welcome back to Lick of the Week. We were looking in the previous video at one of Earl's what I call high register, backup, and lead ideas, and I gave you just a basic version showing you the notes as they travel from the first to the second string. And I thought in this video we would look at just a few ways that you can variate and improvise over those note choices. The standard version, had a certain number of notes, and refer back to the first video. What I like to do in this video is just kind of deconstruct the notes themselves and use them in different arrangements so that we can make some of the commonly heard variations on this lick, and so that you can kind of have fun with it and make up your own improvised versions of the lick. Remember that in the previous video we had 17, 14, and 12 being the primary building blocks of the lick, and then the second string from 11 to 12 being the other primary building block note. And we used the standard version of lick, and then we resolved it back to a G, because this is a G lick in the way we're doing it. Let's do a few variations now. Instead of playing so many notes at the 17th fret, a common variation in Scruggs style is to play the 5th string as a drone, play the 1st string as the first note, and then alternate with the 5th string, and then go back to the 14th fret, 12 back to 14, and then do the sliding notes followed by the 1st string at 14. So you may hear an alternate version of this lick, and it may sound like this. And then obviously it resolves back to a G measure somewhere. Okay, again, here's the first lick. Resolve to a G. And here's the variation number 1. Resolve to a G somewhere. Now, another thing to do is actually change the direction of the notes so that you can take the same notes as far as the note choices, and instead of starting at 17 you can actually play the lick in reverse, not so much in the same syncopated way, but the same notes just in reverse. So let's say I wanted to start at 12 and actually scroll through the lick notes, go back from 12 to 14 to 17, back to 14, back to 12, back to 14. So I'm actually reversing the flow of the notes and not playing this syncopated pattern with the right hand. I'm just playing individual notes in the reverse order. So that's 12, 14, 17, 12, I'm sorry, 14, 12, 14, and then we'll go back over here and we'll use this same kind of expression for the second and first string. So this will be variation number 2, we'll call it. And then usually you resolve it to some kind of measure of G. Now, if you look at the timing of all these variations we've done, the first one lasted for a measure, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and covered a measure. The next variation number 1, 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and, so it will last a measure. He played the third variation, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So if you count this out, or obviously use the metronome, which I can bring up here, then you'll see that this 1 and 2 and 3 and, they're all 8th notes, followed by 16ths, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, into the next measure of G. And also, another commonly heard idea with these notes is to actually pinch the first and second string together. And so instead of having individual notes strung together to make a lick, you can actually do some pinching ideas. I'm going to pinch the first and second string together at 12. So I've still got the first string at 12, which is one of our building block notes, but I'm adding the note that you usually slide into, the 11 to 12 note, which is B flat to B as far as the note. I'm going to add that B note to the D note on the first string and do a pinch with my right hand. And then I'm going to walk up these notes 12, 14, 17, 14. So you can hear that same recurring theme throughout there, 12, 14, 17, again being the building block notes. But now I'm using a pinch idea, leading into G somewhere, usually here. So I have these variations. Variation number 1. I have variation number 2. Now I have variation number 3, which is more of a pinching pattern, but still using the same building block notes. And as far as your fingering choices, you may decide to finger this in an entirely different way with your left hand. It doesn't really matter what fingers you use as long as you find something that's, I guess, ergonomically friendly for you, something that works for your left hand. I tend to want to reach with my pinky for notes, especially when I'm trying to hold notes with one finger. It's really hard to shift positions and hold 2 strings at the same time. So the only way you're really going to get this to sound kind of like a classic version is you're going to have to find a way to add on these multiple notes while keeping these 2 notes down. So I'm going to leave that up to you, but if you want to use my example of something to mimic, that's fine. If it works for you, if it don't, use something else. But I'm going to pinch with my index, maybe my ring here, my pinky here, my ring here. So use whatever fingering works for you. So that would be a pinching version of the lick. There are also some shortened versions of the lick, which you notice I'm not going to 17 this time, but I'm still using the majority of the building block tones. I'm going 12, 14, 12, 14, and then going over here to the slide. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So you notice all these licks, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. If they're played in the typical fashion that we're used to hearing them in Scruggs style, they're going to last a measure. But obviously if you want them to last longer, to cover multiple measures, you can stretch the notes out. If you need it to be shorter, half measure, whatever, measure and a half, you can play around with the number of notes you're playing or the duration of the notes and can come up with your own variations. But these are just building block notes that make up what you hear as licks. Sometimes you'll hear players slide into the lick. They'll start a rapid tremolo kind of single string effect and do different variations, but you'll always recognize any lick that sounds like this by those building block tones. You have a D, an E, and a G, and then a B flat to a B. Notes, tones being your building block licks. Now this is for the key of G, obviously. What I'd like to do in the next video is move this basic lick and some of these variations over to a few different keys. Because as I said before in these other Lick of the Week videos, all of these Earl up the neck licks, and most of his licks in general that are backup oriented, are built upon chord tones. So that means if you know your chord shapes really well, you can transpose these licks anywhere on the neck with or without a capo to other keys. So what I like to do in the next video is move this lick over to a few other keys before we move on to the next licks, because there's a few other high licks that I want to cover. But this is, again, one of the foundational ones that you should know. So, hope you enjoy this video, and we'll see you next time.